So the first issue is whether TPSB had breached the implied condition of fitness for purpose and merchantable quality by delivering defective concrete mixes. The general principle of caveat emptor, in which the buyer is held solely responsible for ensuring the goods quality when deciding to make a purchase. Section 16, Clause 1A of SOGA state that goods sold by description must be of merchantable quality unless the buyer is aware of the defects prior to purchase. So according to the case of Union Alloy and Syarikat Binaan Yoh Tiong La, there are four requirements, which are: first, buyer must disclose the intended use of the goods. Second, buyer must rely on the seller's expertise and knowledge. Third is goods must be the kind that seller normally supplies. And the fourth one is the good must not be sold under patent. In Dutch Far East and Pacific Navigation, so according to Section 14, Clause 3 of the UK Sales of Goods Act 1979, it's equivalent to Section 16 1A of the Sales of Goods Act 1957, which mentions the product sold must be reasonably suitable for the buyer's intended use based on the seller's expertise. Second is Section 14, Clause 2 of the UK Sales of Goods Act is equivalent to Section 16 1B of the SOGA, in which it states that the products must be of merchantable quality unless he was informed of the defects or the defects has been discovered during inspection. So to apply to this situation, BMSB has stated in the contract that the concrete mixes were intended for heavy-duty construction. However, two mixes were found defective at the time of delivery, where one had mechanical failure and the other had significant wear and tear. Therefore, these defects had breached Section 16(1)(a) of SOGA, as BMSB hadn't known about the defects before purchase. By applying the case of Dutch Far East, TPSB has failed to provide mixes for heavy-duty work as promised. Next, under Section 16(1)(b) of SOGA, it states that the buyer has to inform the seller of the intended use for the goods. They must be fit for that purpose. In the case of David Jones and Wills, where it was held that the goods sold by description must, first, meet the implied condition of merchantable quality, second, be free from defects that makes them unfit for the actual purpose. Since two of the mixes were found defective after delivery, it had breached Section 16(1)(b) of SOGA, as it was not fit for the intended purpose. By applying the case of David Jones, the mixes sold by description were defective, thus had breached the conditions of merchantable quality, making them unfit for their purpose. To summarize, based on the evidence and applicable laws, TPSB had clearly breached the implied conditions of merchantable quality and fitness for purpose under Section 16(1)(a) and (b) of SOGA by delivering the defective mixes.
Thank you, Sulha. Next, I will continue with the second issue between TPSB and BMSB, which is whether BMSB prompt notification and demand for replacement or repair is constituted as a valid rejection of the defective goods. According to Section 14(2) of the Sales of Goods 1957, where a buyer is considered to accept the goods when it has been accepted the goods, or when he takes any act inconsistent with the seller ownership after it has been delivered to him. This includes the act of retaining the good for a reasonable time without notifying the seller about his rejection of the goods. Based on the case of Aston Supply against Care, where the buyer had not retracted the second-hand car purchased from the seller within a reasonable time, which is the seller's wife, then used for 14 days. During this period, the defects which were minor were visible. With this, it shows that the plaintiff accepted the car at the time it was delivered. However, the claim of damages is still entitled to the buyer. This also has been illustrated by the Malaysian case of MAG Chef and others against Lam Thai Co Limited, where the litigation arose from a sale by description contract of some Indian titles. However, the appellants had shipped the goods which were not as stated in the description. The respondent then wrote a grumbling letter when the goods shipped by the appellant arrived. However, in the meanwhile, a lighter was used to transport the goods from a ship to Alostar and Butterworth for the sub-purchaser of the respondent. With this, it was held that the respondent's delivery was an acceptance even though they used a consignment, thus their remedy for the damages and right to reject was lost. In the current situation, TPSB has implied the provision above divided from what was described by BMSB, as two of the mixers were defective with one experiencing frequent mechanical failure and the other showing significant wear and tear, suggesting it was not a new unit as agreed. Hence, it did not fit the intended purpose of heavy-duty construction work and did not match BMSB description, which clearly show a breach of the implied condition. According to Section 14.2 of the Sale of Goods Act 1957, as the goods received were not according to the said agreement, BMSB has the right to reject the goods within a reasonable time. However, referring to the case of Eastern Supply against Care and MG Chef and others against Lam Thai Co Limited, BMSB exceeded the period to return the mixers, and it was considered that they accepted the goods because BMSB never returned them. Thus, BMSB also retained and used the mixers, including the defective mixers, for initial project work. Therefore, it is considered that BMSB has accepted the mixers even though the mixers were defective and did not correspond with the description. In conclusion, BMSB's prompt notification and demand for replacement or repair is not a valid rejection of the defective goods, as BMSB had accepted the goods even though they were different from the description. Therefore, BMSB cannot repudiate the contract and is entitled to claim damages.
So, in my part, I'll be talking about the third issue. The third issue is whether BMSP has the right to withhold payment of the outstanding 300,000 ringgit. Firstly, in Section 13, Subsection 1 of the Sale of Goods Act 1957, the breach of condition allows the buyer to repudiate the contract, insure the goods, and withhold payment. However, if the buyer has accepted the goods, they are only entitled to damages and cannot reject them. Based on the case of Associated Metals Smelters Ltd and Tam Chiu To, the buyer may waive a breach of condition and treat it as a breach of warranty. In this situation, the buyer may use the right to reject the goods and they can only claim for damages. To apply to the law above, it can be seen that BMSP should have the right to reject the goods. But in this case, BMSP has already accepted the goods by using them and attempting to resell them to PSP. Because PMSP had already accepted the goods, it limits their right to claim damages for the defect and exclude the right to withhold the payment. Furthermore, in Section 55 of the Sale of Goods Act 1957, where it explained that once the goods are accepted, the buyer is obliged to pay for them and the seller can claim for the price even if the goods are defective. In applying Section 55 of the Sale of Goods Act 1957, once the goods have already passed to the buyer is obligated to pay for the goods even if they are defective. Since BMSP had already accepted the goods and the property in the goods had passed to them, it made the BMSP obligated to pay for the remaining 300,000 ringgit. To conclude, the MSP has no right to withhold the payment because BMSP had already accepted the goods on the ground, they had already used the goods and they also attempted to resell. Thus, BMSP is obligated to pay the outstanding amount of 300,000. Thank you.
Okay, so now moving on to the fourth issue, which is whether Bina Maju Sedan Berhad BMSP is obligated to compensate Pemilihan Utama Sedan Berhad PUSB for misrepresenting a refurbished concrete mixer as new. So, according to Section 15 of the Sales of Goods Act 1957, it is been stated that goods are sold by description. Therefore, when there is an implied condition that the goods must match, therefore it must be matched with the description provided. So this can be further seen in the case of William Construction Sedan Berhad and Ingersoll Jati Malaysia Sedan Berhad. So in this case, it has been stated that the items within a sale should be as described as it is in its description. So when someone actually fails to do this, even if the item is identical in quality, therefore it will be breaching that condition. So how do we apply the laws? So we can see that BMSB actually sold a refurbished concrete mixer to PSB while representing it as a new concrete mixer. Therefore, upon inspection, PSB has discovered that it was not as described, thus it is breaching Section 15 of the Sales of Goods Act 1957.
This actually aligns with the principle of Wheelian consortium Sedamhat, as that the mixer did not match the description of a new product. Therefore, in conclusion, we can see that BMSV is liable for breaching the condition of the description by selling a refurbished concrete mixer, misrepresenting it as new. So moving on to the fifth issue, which is whether BMSB is obligated to sell merchantable quality under Section 16, Subsection 1 of the Sales of Goods Act 1957 to PUSB. So according to Section 16, Subsection 1A of the Sales of Goods Act, we can see that there is no implied warranty or condition regarding the quality or fitness of the goods in sale. So this can be further seen in the case of Spencer Trading Co. Limited against the Event, Fixel and Stickfast Limited third parties, where the seller is liable when they have reached the implied condition of fitness for the purpose of the goods that the provider fails to meet the intended purpose. Therefore, in order to apply the deceptions and also the case, we can see that the refurbished mixer fails to meet the expected quality and durability of a new product. Therefore, it actually aligns with the principle of the case of Spencer Trading Co. Limited, as BMSC is liable for reaching the implied condition of fitness for purpose, as selling concrete mixers actually falls within their own business. So in conclusion, we can see that BMSP has reached the condition of merchantable quality in the sale of the concrete mixer with PSB, thus making BMSP liable. With this, I would like to pass on to the next presenter. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So for my part, I will explain to you about an issue, that is whether PUSB has a right to claim for a full refund from BMSB after discovering the status of the mixer due to their inspection. So for the law, we are not referring to any specific provision or law in any act, but we are referring to the principle and concept of caveat emptor. Caveat emptor means let the buyer beware. So, in this principle, a buyer is also accountable for examining before finalizing the transaction. In this concept, the purchaser or buyer also need to analyze and required to evaluate the goods before making the transaction or purchase in order to ensure the goods meet their needs, functions, and purposes. So, in the case of Ward against Hobbs, the seller was not held responsible for the peak losses due to the buyer's failure to inspect them before the sale concluded. In this case, the court also emphasized that the buyer had a duty and responsible to do inspection of the peaks before finalizing the transaction. And if the peak was found to be dead or lost or not purposely fulfilled their needs, then it is not accountable for the seller to make a refund, because it is the failure for the purchaser to do the inspection prior to the finalizing of the transaction. For the application, in this case, PUSB conducted a thorough inspection to assess the mixer status and condition. However, the mixer was discovered to be a used and refurbished item, which can be considered as contradiction to the agreement made between the PUSB and BMSB. So, PUSB invoked their rights to inspection under caveat emptor, making BMSB accountable for breaching the implied condition of fitness for purpose by selling a product that did not match with its description and also contradict to their agreement. In conclusion, PUSB has a right to claim for a full refund from BMSB as the seller had breached the implied condition of fitness for purpose towards the buyer. So in this case, the buyer, that is PUSB, and also the BMSB as the seller, BMSB should pay the full refund to the buyer. That's all from my part. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
So now we will be moving on to the last issue in the situation of PUSB and BMSB, and the issue is whether PUSB has the right to claim for damages due to the breach of warranty by BMSB. So now we'll be referring to Section 59 of Sales of Goods Act 1957, where it states that in the event of a breach of warranty by the seller, then the buyer may sue the seller for damages for breach of warranty. We can also refer to the case of QQ Trading Sendirian Berhad and Hong Cheng Seafood Supplies Sendirian Berhad, where in this case the plaintiff has failed to provide the prawns supply to the defendant with the same quality as per the agreement between them. And in this case, the court held that the defendant's counterclaim was valid, as a buyer has the right to claim compensation which was directly resulted by the seller's breach of warranty. So, to apply Section 59 of the Sales of Goods Act 1957, it can be seen that BMSB has a breach of warranty by selling the refurbished concrete mixer to BUSB but saying it is a new mixer. Therefore, according to Section 59, subsection 1b of the Sales of Goods Act 1957, BUSB has the right to sue BMSB for damages for breach of warranty. And this can be further supported by the case of QQ Trading Sendirian Berhad, as the mixer sold to PUSB by BMSB did not comply with the conditions that were agreed, which is the new concrete mixer. And a defective mixer can cause potential financial losses if the product fails to perform properly. So, to conclude, BMSB has clearly breached their warranty, which entitles PUSB the right to claim damages for breach of warranty according to Section 59 of Sales of Goods Act 1957. Thank you.